I'd also like to thank the Independent Institute for sponsoring my visit to here and to allow me to introduce the book Street Smart, which it published in June 2006. Now, the arrangement this morning is that we introduce ourselves. So my name is Gabriel Roth. I'm a civil engineer and a transport economist. I came to the United States in 1967 to join the World Bank as a transport economist. I worked in many countries, and over the 20 years with the bank, I became less and less enchanted with the powers of government to produce good public services. And I persuaded the bank to allow me to write a book on this, the private provision of public services in developing countries. This was published in '87, and then I left the bank and have been working on this sort of thing as a writer and consultant in Washington ever since. I became particularly interested in the private provision of roads, and in '96, Ashgate published my Roads in a Market Economy, and just a year ago, in June 2006, the Independent Institute published Street Smart, Competition, Entrepreneurship, and the Future of Roads. So the topic is the private provision of public roads, and if I can work this computer, I'll take you to the next slide, which is about Will Rogers. Will Rogers, as you know, was a famous American philosopher, and he is reported to have said that the way to end traffic jams is by having government provide the cars and private industry the roads. Now, I think I'll leave it to somebody else to discuss how government should provide the cars, and I will concentrate on private industry providing the roads. Now, what did Will Rogers mean? I think he meant that one should apply to roads the pricing and investment principles we use in the market economy. And they are simple and well known. Consumers pay for what they get. Producers provide what is profitable. Road users get what they are prepared to pay for. Why change the present system? Well, first, it is not responsive to consumer needs. We all know the statistic about traffic in the last 10 years on the interstates increasing by 38% and highway capacity by 5%. We also heard yesterday evening excellent presentations from Randall and Tom about how decisions on transport investments are made in this area. Now, it would be quite wrong for me, a foreigner, to suggest that the people who run democratically elected councils here are anything less than solons
it is not responsive to consumer needs.
Legislation.
We all know the statistic about.
Nevertheless, things do not always work out as we would like them to.
Interstates increasing by 38%,
so
and highway capacity by.
It seems to me that politicians are really not the best people to deal with investment in infrastructure. The second reason is that the present system utterly fails to deal with traffic congestion in urban areas. Now, this is not a new problem. You all know that Julius Caesar came out with a rule forbidding heavy trucks to enter Rome in the daytime, thereby subjecting the citizens to the noise of the carts at night. Some people even think that traffic congestion is a sort of disease of civilization, and it is inevitable. Well, of course, all economists know that congestion is a symptom of poor pricing, and that this is something that could be applied to the scarce resource road space. I'll come to that later. Educated economists know that there's more than pricing involved here. There's also a lack of ownership in the scarce resource road space, which points to the need to have roads privately owned, to have the full advantages from them of the market economy. And finally, the third reason to change the present system is that there's an issue of personal freedom involved. People like to do things. In order to do things, they've got to get to places. Their time is short. As they get richer, and we hope that our societies will get richer, there are more things that they want to do, and they have less time, so they want to travel faster. No way has been found to travel faster than with personal motorized mobility. I'm talking about door-to-door travel. I'm not talking about a rail train that can travel 150 miles on a rail between two stations. What matters is door-to-door travel time. So we have here a restriction on individual freedom under the present system. Can the private sector really provide road systems? Well, the private sector can do lots of things. It can maintain and manage existing roads. This has been done in British Columbia for the last 20 years. It's been done in Virginia, even in socialist Washington, D.C. The systems used are called performance-based maintenance systems, which means the government determines what the system has to produce, and individual contractors bid for the right to produce these results in any way that they think is best. There are similar systems in the United Kingdom. They are called shadow tolls, concessions, and concessionaires are invited to build or maintain roads, and they get paid in proportion to the traffic using them. For every vehicle mile, they are paid so many pennies, and concessionaires bid for the right to do this work by offering to do it for the least number of pennies per vehicle mile. What else can the private sector do? It can provide new roads. 1908, the first expressway financed by Vanderbilt. 1995, State Route 91 in Southern California. Express lanes in the median of an existing road, which give road users the choice of uncongested travel on payment of a fee. I'll come back to that later. 96, the Dulles Greenway, the first modern American complete toll road. 203, the M6 toll road in England, I think the first modern toll road in England. Malcolm might correct me on this. The private sector can also provide countrywide road networks. In the US, in the 19th century, 15,000 miles of roads were provided by 1,562 companies under conditions that to me seem incredible. They had no modern building equipment. They had no way of charging for the use of the roads except by people having to pay tolls at toll gates. In the UK, similar arrangements with 22,000 miles operated by 1,116 turnpike trusts. So these were complete networks, and according to Dan Klein and John Majewski, this impressive investment in the period 1800 to 1830 amounted to 6.15% of GDP. That compares with 4.3% of GDP for the interstate highway system, the investment in the period 56 to 95. There are also modern toll concessions, 407 express toll in Canada. The private sector in Chicago paid $2 billion for a 99-year lease on a toll road there. There are concessions all over the world. Many of the most interesting ones in tunnels in urban areas, in Paris, Madrid, Sydney, and China. Why not in the US? Advantage of concessions, they are very obvious. The concessionaires bear the risks of cost overruns, of maintenance overruns, and of traffic risks. If the public sector builds a road, there's often a risk that the traffic is underestimated and the taxpayers are left to bear the cost. Where concessionaires do it, if they bear the traffic risk, they bear the costs. The SR91 express toll lanes are particularly interesting because they are the first roads with variable tolling, which guarantees congestion-free travel. They have been replicated in San Diego, Denver, and Minneapolis, and are being planned for Washington, D.C. The tolling, of course, is electronic without having to stop to pay a toll. Why not get the government to act commercially? It cannot raise prices. Very difficult for governments to raise prices. Officials are led by whims and fashions, like the British transport policy, which can be summarized in 4 words: rail good, roads bad. And of course they cannot be trusted to spend the funds that are paid in the interests of those who pay them. We see this in the London congestion pricing and also proposals for a transport project near Washington, D.C., which is a property owner's enrichment project masquerading as a transport project called the Dulles Rail Extension. Next steps in the U.S., I have 1 minute. Expand the private management and maintenance of roads, allow the private provision of more express lanes, commercialize, then privatize existing roads, and reform the road charging system. But we do not have to go through the first stages before reforming the road charging system. A principal obstacle to the lack of progress is lack of knowledge of private sector alternatives. The purpose of this book, Street Smart Competition, Entrepreneurship and the Future of Roads, is to help overcome this ignorance, and I commend it to you. Thank you very much.
And we now have time for comments and questions. So please take it away.
Dr. Roth, could you speculate on what the United States might look like if your policies had been followed from the start in terms of demographics and mobility and the type of roads we might have?
First, I'm not a doctor. I think this question is too difficult for me to handle in this period. Obviously, there would be less congestion, there would be less time wasted. At the moment, use of roads is rationed by congestion. Therefore, the people who are first encouraged to leave congested roads are those who are better off with the most urgent work to do, and those who stay on the roads are those with the least urgent work to do.
Do you think there would be more or less transit?
I think there probably would be different transit. That's another issue. I hope that there would be shared taxis, minibuses and things like that. But there would be very big changes in land uses. And I think this is something that is worthy of a special conference. Yes?
One of your early slides gave some distances for roads built many years ago with the comment that this was a complete system. I rather doubt that, given the extent of the nation at that time, that you did have much of a complete system with the private roads. Now, it seems to me that also that your argument is based simply upon the present inability, for whatever reason, of government to do the job properly. But I see no reason why to believe that with conflicting commercial interests, we would not have equal problems.
Well, two questions here, two issues. First, were the 19th century road systems complete road systems? I think they certainly were. If people wanted to go from London to Holyhead, there was a road built. People would traverse several roads built by different turnpike companies, but the roads did mesh into a complete system.
Of main roads, but not others.
They were main roads. Well, others were provided locally. There was no problem with local people providing local roads for themselves. The problem was with roads for through traffic, which local people were very reluctant to build. And your second point?
That I see no reason to assume that with conflicting commercial interests, we would not have problems as deep as we have today.
I'm sure we would have problems. If there were no problems, we would have no work. But there would be different kinds of problems. We have problems in the supply of electricity. We have problems in the supply of telecom. But we have mechanisms to resolve these. These are nothing like as deep and profound as the problems of living in the Soviet Union, which is a sort of problem that we have with roads today. The roads we have are a Soviet enterprise. The Russians got rid of food rationing in their stores by changing their system from command economy to free market. I'm saying that if this could be done with roads, we would have a similar transformation.
Good.
My question is a financial one. We've already been taxed everywhere we can to support a road system. When we see any return or diminishment of taxes, I'm going to liken it to the school system. We're taxed for a school system that isn't working, so now we're paying extra money for a private system that works better.
Well, I didn't go to charging, and obviously one would want to see the present system replacing the existing. We would like to see a new system replacing the existing system with existing taxes abolished. I know this is something that worries Alan very much, and I suspect that with the, certainly in this country, with the government running itself into the ground, we would end up with a new system and the existing taxes remaining. But this is a different issue.
We have time for one more comment or question.
Yeah, I'd like to hear you elaborate more, though, on that issue, because it seems to me that in forums such as this, the promotion and economists saying clear the market with congestion pricing, and that this is now being picked up by the planning community as a great opportunity to essentially collect those dollars and deal with the congestion. And there's less talk that goes to how's that money going to be used. Because I can just, I mean, it's the talk around here in the Bay Area is to put congestion pricing in place. There's very little talk about what the offsets for that will be. But you know who's going to get the money. And you can only imagine what kind of mischief that's going to do. How do you forestall that problem?
Well, two comments. First of all, I think the case for privatization is very much strengthened by congestion pricing, because one cannot deal properly with congestion without congestion pricing, and one cannot allow